Hi everybody, this is Karina Velasco and I'm super excited to be today in the studio talking about one of my passions of life, which are relationships, open relationships, I might say. And my first guest, I'm super honored. He's my personal mentor. He's a Tantra master and I love the way he describes himself in his bio from his book, A Course of Freedom. He says he's a leading scholar of dismantling mythology, stories, ideas, rules, and cultural values that determine your decisions and choices of action. Ooh la la. Lawrence Lanoff, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
How are you?
I'm amazing.
Juicy as ever.
Yes, and as you are.
Oh, thank you.
Looking fabulous.
So would you like some coffee, tea, or sex?
Exactly. I will take all three, starting with sex.
Oh, I like that.
We're here because we're going to talk about some fun, super fun things today.
Open relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the world shifting.
Mm-hmm.
I see the world, we all as human beings have different needs. So my first question is it really possible to have an open relationship?
Right. So this is the big question. We have a cultural system that we've all inherited. So let's first start with something simple that we all understand, right? At one point, everybody thought the Earth was flat. And so...
And it's not?
I know, it's shocking, right? And yeah, that's another story. But basically, everybody thought the world was flat. And then there was a lot of pushback culturally, because if you were to change the Earth from flat to round, it changes everything in life. And I feel like we're pressed against that. The same thing with work. You know, for the longest time, the idea was just work hard and get a good job and work hard, and then
40
you'll be
years in the same company.
That's it. And you'll be set for the rest of your life. That's a cultural mythology. Of course, the stock market crash changed that forever, right? And then this new thing happened where kids were coming out of college and they were like, hey, just get an education, get a good education, and you'll get a job. And of course,
it didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we have more young people out of work, living back at home. Why? Because the mythology is not a real thing. A mythology is just a cultural idea. But then the forces of reality start to break that down, and mythology is a perfect example of that, right? So when you have monogamy as the thing, it's
mythology. That's the mythology.
That's the mythology. So what you're experiencing right now is the evidence is not supporting the mythology. So we are at the very, very beginnings of a cultural sea change about how we feel about monogamy.
But there's a lot of evidence that monogamy actually doesn't work. Like how many divorces, how many causes are of being unfaithful, of having lovers, it's just wrong.
Yeah.
But like I saw in TED Talks, this woman who said infidelity and affairs started the day marriage got started.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. The idea there is just simply that before that time, sex is sex. So it's coffee, it's tea, and sex, and coffee and tea, right? It's not...
I like it. Coffee, tea, and sex, not or sex.
Yeah,
because sex is part of nature.
It
it's our biology, right?
It is. It's our biology. And really what we're starting to see is the intersection of our biology and our mythology. But the biology ultimately is going to win because sex is a powerful force.
So you're saying between the mythology or the belief system that monogamy is a must and the biology of sex, that's where the struggle begins.
That is
because I don't know anybody who doesn't struggle internally between, oh my God, I'm happily married, but I want that guy, you know, he's hot, or I want that girl, look at her ass. I mean, that's a natural thing.
It's natural, of course.
But why people feel so shitty and like shameful and full of guilt of just feeling attraction for somebody else?
Well, that's what mythology tells you. So another way to think about mythology is it's a story. And the purpose of any story is to move you from point A to point B to point C, right, to the climax, and then till death do we part. That's what a story does. And so basically the idea of monogamy was just the story that somebody invented. You know, somebody just came up with this idea. I think this is how it should be. And then, like many ideas, not all of them good, just because it's an idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. And just because it's an idea, sometimes they catch, like the flat earth idea. It wasn't correct, but it caught on, and it had the reins for hundreds of years. But then a new idea starts, and you begin to see reality, and I think that's what we're facing now with the internet, with people speaking more honestly, with the fact that we are on your program talking honestly about open relationships.
And the possibility.
That's it. And that's...
So they're possible.
They're absolutely possible.
Why are we so scared of them?
I think we're so afraid of open relationships because we looked at any kind of relationship as ownership. That for the longest time, right? It's like, yeah. I own, we're connected, we're married, I own your vagina. And women for thousands of years were seen as property. So vagina ownership became just
I'm just so happy you're saying this at this moment, because I've always felt like property. Like, even it's like, I have girlfriends, you know, it's like, my husband doesn't allow me to go.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't allow me to dress this way. Come on, guys, it's like 2016.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's the point. So our thinking is literally 2,000 years old, and we're trying to upgrade that thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what you're seeing. This is what the influences are. So right now it is, I should be jealous because your vagina is my vagina, right? And I own you. And so this is what jealousy is all about, and our ideas about ownership. And so
it's about not sharing your vagina that belongs to you, or in this case, my cock, which is right. Your cock. Like, I don't want to share with anybody else.
That's right. And so this ownership thing, and there's another idea that starts way back in the Greek philosopher days that said, you are my other half, right? So those two ideas were really...
You complete me.
You complete me. That's right. So this is why people are struggling, and it's so confusing, because if you talk to anybody, if you get relationship counseling, they're like, well, you know, true love, the right way to be is, you know, find your other half and get together.
The compliment.
Oh my goodness, right? So you literally cannot go anywhere at this moment and have a rational discussion about open relationship, because the problem is not what we believe, okay? It's not what we believe about monogamy or open relationship. It's what we believe that's incorrect. That's the issue.
Which I would say is most of it.
It's most of it.
Because it's made up.
Yes. Yeah, that's really
we humans make up stories.
We do. We make up stories all the time, and then we are surprised when our made up stories don't work in real life.
Okay, so now it's clear it's a mythology, you know, and we need, what I'm understanding is to change our thought forms or belief systems around that in order to create the relationships we want.
That's it.
So how can I gain clarity? How do I know as a person if I really want an open relationships or monogamy?
Well,
taking away like that, you know, like that mythology and the ownership and the jealousy, just like, are there any traits in the personality?
That's a really good question. So a lot of that has to do with what's called adult attachment style. So some people they feel essentially an insecure attachment. And so for them, it's really important to know, like, hey, am I okay? Am I okay? Are we okay? Am I okay? Right? I mean, that also looks like neediness, but fundamentally, that's just somebody feeling insecurely attached. So
the need for validation.
The need for validation and comfort and all of those things, right? So somebody who feels deeply insecure probably open relationship style would not be best for you, right? It
wouldn't feel good.
It wouldn't feel good.
Yeah.
Right. But if you're somebody who, and also, by the way, avoidant attachment style. So it's very common for somebody who's avoidant.
Oh, tell me about that one.
Right. So this one is like.
I think that's one of my favorites.
I mean, this is part of this is tango. This is the essence of tango.
Oh.
I love you. I hate you. But I love you. But I hate you. But I love you. But I hate you, right? This is avoidant attachment. Come closer.
Push and pull.
That's it. And that is how most people experience monogamous relationships. There's this kind of come close and then push away. Somebody gets closer, somebody else pushes away. That's a standard avoidant attachment style in a monogamous format.
If you buy me a new car, you'll have sex.
That's
if you don't
right.
buy me the car I want, there's no sex for you, mister.
That's exactly right. And that's the commerce of vagina ownership, because you understand that you are being owned and you can control, that's your only control, is what you do with your vagina, access to sex. This is in fact part of the ownership, vagina ownership
That's
commerce.
why they want to control our vaginas, because we have tons of pussy power.
Well, that is another topic, but
Okay.
yes, absolutely, you are sitting on a volcano. And so the only way that you, exactly, and so the only way that you can really be controlled is through this exchange, right? So if you don't realize you have all this power and you're feeling insecurely attached and
Or the avoidance.
and you're in this ownership dynamic, that's a way to control that raw power. So
there's the other attachment, which is, let's
Secure.
say, the safest bet for an open relationship to work.
yeah. So the safest bet for open relationship would be two people who are securely attached. In other words, we know we're cool. I think, just as a geek in Tantra and human relationships, I think that being secure in yourself, that's an inside job, right? That starts with you. It starts right here. How do you feel about you? Most people feel crappy about themselves because of what they believe. But if they start believing, adjusting their mythologies, their belief systems, so they're like, hey, you know what? I'm basically okay. And I feel good, and you feel good, we can get together. We can have lots and lots of fun with two independent people who are hanging out, having fun, feeling empowered, living our lives, but we can also go play with other people. We have the strength, the power, the wherewithal to connect with other people and feel good. And that is the secure attachment point.
So the open relationship, because I know a couple of friends, and their names are, no, just kidding. And their names are. But they're very open-minded about
Yes.
it. But then when a situation happens, about let's say group sex or another woman or man coming into, when you're dating somebody, they freak out. So I mean, to be in an open relationship, it's gaining clarity and a mental level, but also how do you embody that, or how do you make that part of your being, to be able to create that actually?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, what you're speaking about is you have to think of open relationship style as a skill set, right? It's a skill. I wouldn't take you to the gym and say, hey, Karina, go bench press 300 pounds. I wouldn't do that. You'd look at me like, can I start with maybe air bench pressing first? I mean, you have to build up. So a lot of people think open relationship, hey, anything goes. But
From this to that, from one
Yes.
extreme to other, instead of
it's really
It's a
something.
soft approach.
It's a soft approach. You have to have
oh
difficult.
my God, that explains a lot.
Yes.
Because if not, you have a bad taste of it, and then you think that's open relationship. Because I see that a lot in polyamory, which is another theme. But people get scared. It's if this is really what it's about, I don't want to play.
Well, it's not fun because that kind of stuff is filled with drama.
Yeah.
But again, think of it like the tango. if somebody's in a monogamous relationship, they like all that jealousy and ownership and struggle, but you can also have an open relationship or a polyamorous relationship, and the way you have all that struggle and drama is you keep throwing people into the deep end of the pool, right? You just throw them in difficult situations. I have a friend who's like, yeah, I opened up the relationship and I had like a fivesome, and I don't understand why my girlfriend's upset. And I'm like,
consideration.
exactly, right? How do you know, it's basic decencies for human. Like you don't want to like just throw that out the window. You know, you be cool with somebody.
So you start exploring open relationship. Either you're in a relationship you want to open, or let's say you're a single person, and how do you get out there the possibility of open relationship without people thinking you want an instant orgy, because that happens,
Sure.
Or you're like a total slut, which also that happens.
That happens all the time. Well, you know, I mean, honestly, I'm just being like in reality about this.
Yeah.
This is more difficult for a female-bodied person to navigate because culture has so much sexual shame that it heaps on women. So it becomes like, if you say, hey, I'm in an open relationship, why aren't you okay with that? If somebody's coming from the framework of monogamy, the only options they have are like, oh, this woman must be a slut or a whore, because what is the other framework? What is the framework for
There's
a sexually
no
empowered?
reference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no framework for sexually empowered women who are together, who haven't been, you know, raped and molested in their history, who don't have all this drama. We don't have anything for that. We just have this kind of sense of like, anybody who wants something that doesn't fit the cultural norm, there must be something wrong with her. And so part of the thing is educating, which is what we're doing right now, talking about it, having more open discussions. The way I figured out that actually open relationships were a thing that needed to be brought out into culture is because I noticed that there was not one person in my practice who was not thinking about or having some kind of extracurricular activity. And so, you know, I noticed that women called it different things. Like women would be like, you know, that doesn't count. I was just drunk, you know. There's like this, come on, right? And then the guys would get caught and it was like, he cheated on me. And I was like, don't you see that everybody's doing the same thing? We're just calling it different things.
That's hilarious.
I know. And that was the beginning. That was
double standard.
Yes.
Because you want something and we do something else that we call it something else.
Exactly.
So everything gets confusing.
Yeah.
So how to be clear on really like acknowledging you want to open a relationship or you want to explore that, and how can I share that to somebody?
Okay, so here I would say there are three things you have to consider. So number one is, what do you want? Okay, just because I want something doesn't mean I'm going to like something. So we have to be flexible and curious. Flexible and curious. So I have an idea.
What do you mean by that? Like something you want that not necessarily you're gonna like?
Exactly. Yeah. Have you ever tried something and you're like, this sounds amazing?
Yeah.
Right? And then you actually try it and you're like, not so much. So
Taking that risk.
You've got to take the risk, but you have to be open and willing to change your mind. So the first thing is like communicate about it. I think I want to try an open relationship. Well, what does that mean? That's part of like, there are courses out there that you can take. I have one included where it just starts to lay the foundation of what what it means to want this thing.
And what's really an open relationship?
And what
a
is an
committed
open relationship?
Several boyfriends, several girlfriends, like lovers, friends with benefits. I mean, there's many ways to play around that idea.
Yeah, it's pretty infinite. So you got to be clear about what you're looking for.
Okay.
And also, what type of person are you? And what is your attachment style? Right? If you're naturally insecure, that is not going to be a fun experience.
Yeah, maybe have a monogamous, like, fling open every 10 years situation.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, basically that's what we're doing anyway as a culture.
Exactly.
We're doing, a sort of serial, ongoing open
But
relationship.
what about honesty?
I think honesty is a very important aspect, but I also think we get lost in the idea that I need to tell you everything that's going on in my life, right? So you are still entitled to private
I'm your
thoughts.
owner, right?
Exactly. That's based on the monogamous paradigm that I
Yeah.
own you. But you are entitled to private space. You're entitled to not have your partner need to look at your cell phone or to, go through your emails, right?
Or your producer having your code for your phone, for example.
Exactly. You are entitled to private space.
Yeah.
So this is one of the principles I actually teach in open relationship. This idea, which I think is incorrect, that I need to share every detail.
Transparency, right?
Correct, yeah. Transparency it's like you want to be honest, but you are also entitled simultaneously to some private space. That's just, we need that as human beings. We need that to have, excellent psychological function.
So that would be another key for open relationships to work.
Yeah.
So let's say the first one was the level of attachment you have, the kind of attachment.
Well, what do you want is the
Yeah,
first.
what do you want?
The kind of attachment style you have.
Okay.
Right? And then a sub-principle of that is like my private space. And then I would say the final thing would be getting comfortable having the discussion with strangers, but you can do it with friends to start out with,
Yeah.
what I call the difficult conversation of, and oh, by the way, I have no interest in being owned, and I have an open relationship style, and that's a deal breaker, right? So if you need me to get into this particular box, I'm not that woman. And to be really clear, that's why it all starts with, what do you want? What do you really want? Now, I love open relationship style. I've been married, I've been monogamous. I was monogamous my entire marriage, but honestly, I found it to be very difficult and not fun, and a part of me was dying. And so when I went back out into the world after my divorce, I just knew that is not the style for me. So I just started having honest conversations, just like this, about what I really felt like I needed. And it shocked me at the number of people who were just like, that sounds
Really?
cool. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm open to learning more.
Because sometimes we're afraid because we think there's not enough people in the world who are into open relationships or want to explore this kind of relationship. Or also we have that need to get validated, like you say.
Right.
Depending on your attachment, is like, oh my God, I really like this guy, but if I tell him the truth, he's not gonna like me, and then I'm gonna be doomed, and I'm gonna be alone for the rest of my life.
That's typically where people take it.
I tend to dramatize things.
Yeah, but that's what all people do. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
we do. We take it all the way to the worst possible level. Like, if I stay in an open relationship, I'll be alone and lonely and die on the streets for my entire life. That's how my life is going to go. And it's so crazy. Like,
So you know what you want is important. Like, let's say I want to ask a guy that I'm dating that I want an open relationship.
Yes.
Like, what could be the first step? Like, for example, really?
Your vibrator?
Is this a lot?
No,
Is
it's
this a
great.
lot for the conversation?
I like
Okay,
it.
guys, check this. Oh,
It's vibrating right now.
I wasn't supposed to talk while I was doing the vibrator. But I mean, there's little statements, right? Like, you can hang a vibrator out of your neck.
Yes, it's great. It's great. I went through security with one of those one time.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. No, but this is a beautiful vibrator, and it's pretty cool, you know, and it's fun, and it automatically gives you a glimpse that I'm sex positive. Like,
Yes.
I'm free with my sexuality.
Yes.
So how can we portray that, or how can we express that? Like, coming back to the example.
Well, I think you just said it right there. There are little things right away that signal that you're living not by the cultural confines exactly. And ultimately, I think people ask me this question. They're like, well, when should I bring this up in the conversation? You know, if I
Yeah,
just meet
how
somebody,
many dates?
you know what? I'm like, as soon as you get to a modicum of comfort, that's the time to bring it up. And if that happens in the first date or the second date, you better bring it up right then and there. Blow it up early if it's going to blow up, and save yourself 6 months or a year of drama. You know, one of the myths of mythology, one of the myths of monogamy is that you're not supposed to tell the truth. You're supposed to pretend to be somebody else so people like you and marry you. And see you in the right way so that you can then be miserable and get a divorce down the road. It doesn't make sense. Like, part of the open relationship style is just be direct about what you want.
And we're adults, right?
We're adults. Like, let's start treating each other that way. And that is like an underlying principle to the whole idea of open relationship. Start treating your partner or partners like they're adults instead of children. And really, monogamy is all about treating your partner like they are children. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's on your phone? What's on your email? What's in your thoughts? Share with me this. You know, this is what you do when you're trying to train a 5-year-old. But we don't want to, you know, do you really want to be in a relationship with your mother or your father?
No way.
Exactly. You know, but this is the model that we use every day.
So it is possible.
Yes. Oh yeah, it's possible. It is possible. We have to upgrade our thinking. We have to upgrade the quality of our relationships, and we must trust our partners to be adults. And that one framework where I look at you and I go, you know what? I'm going to see you as an adult. As an adult, you've made it this far without me. I think you can continue along just fine. So why don't we be adults together and decide how we want to live our lives? And I feel like that's the essence of, you know, that's the essence of an open relationship. It starts with meeting, you know, being in partnership or in relationship with adults.
Also, we've talked about, because I do a lot of mentoring with Lawrence, about being open. So what does that really mean? Because you said, Karina, like, I'm into open relationships. I would like to have an open relationship. Hi, are you there out there? You know, I can say it now on TV. But you say the thing is to be open, right? Like, if somebody's open to that possibility, in not just in their mind, but like their whole body, their whole being, there's a possibility. So how to choose, how do we know if somebody's open, and how do we know if we're open?
Great question. So let me just clarify the point. The point is, what we're really saying is, you know, sometimes people are like, how do I find people who are like me? That's going to be a much harder thing, since the discussion of open relationship is such a new concept. But if I find somebody who is open, i.e. open-minded, in other words, not all fear-based, well, how are you going to know if somebody's open? If we're sitting at dinner or we're walking down the street and somebody's like, oh my God, did you hear about this? Lots of fear and paranoia in their conversation. That's probably not going to be the most open person, because they're communicating to you that they're not feeling secure. So if they're not feeling secure in life, they're not going to. You already know. Yeah. So
why waste your time?
That's it. So I'm looking for somebody whose mind is open, who, if I say something a little bit edgy, they're not like, oh my God. You know, because if I see that kind of shamey, blamey thing,
it's a no-no.
It's a no. There's no reason. I don't want to go train people. It's like, you know, but sometimes you'll say something and you see this moment of like, that sounds interesting. Tell me more about that. That's a worthwhile discussion. That's somebody I want to have a greater discussion with. And I don't know how to say that, but over time, as you get more comfortable communicating your desires with people, you see that more and more. You know, you just see it. You can see it in their eyes. You can see this kind of like, you know, exactly, like a sparkle. That's exactly right. And that's what I'm looking for, is that connection and that that sparkle and that openness, and then it's fun, and everybody's having a good time, and nobody's being hurt. It may not always be comfortable, but welcome to life. Being an adult human means you need to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the
That's
path.
part of life.
And I think life is too short to not really honor our desires and go for it. So if you have clarity, why dating the person who's not gonna be in the same page you are?
That's right.
So rather from the beginning, know like this is who I am, this is what I want, and there's gonna be a lot of people in this world who wants the same things.
There are.
And we'll just bump into each other on the street or go to parties or go to workshops. Like I've met really cool people in workshops.
Absolutely.
That's part of like how do you meet people, right?
Yeah, that's it. You go out into the world, you have conversations, open and honest conversations about things that are important to you. And
also have conversations with people who are actually already in an open relationship.
yes.
Because that's going to give you a reference point. You're going to feel more comfortable.
Exactly.
But it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's an uncomfortable path until it becomes comfortable.
That's right.
Right? Like
Yeah.
monogamy is comfortable until it becomes uncomfortable.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, it's a really fun time in that sense because we're at the beginning of a wave. We're at the beginning of a different conversation. It just is. It's inevitable that this conversation becomes part of culture because divorce rates are over 50%. And as a friend of mine, Christopher Ryan, said, it's like if you're flying in an airplane and like 52% of the airplanes drop out of the sky and explode, we're not going to sit around and go like, oh, that's okay. Everybody, don't worry. I mean, it's right. It's just, it'll get, some of them will get there and it's fine. And, you would be like, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. There's a problem. If one in two flights crashes, we have a problem with the system. But nobody asks that question when it comes to monogamy. Nobody's
it's the
like
system. Because people blame sex.
Yes.
Sex is just sex. Sex is not an issue. It's how we think about sex. It's the mythologies that
That's
are back up like what sex is.
Yeah.
Because sex is just sex and it's beautiful and pleasurable and recreational and procreational and biological and part of nature.
Yeah.
Like everybody drinks coffee, has some tea, and have some sex, right?
That's exactly right.
Lawrence.
Yay.
Yay. And you have like really fun stuff going on. So if you want to share your online courses, and also I have the fortune to teach sometimes with Lawrence, and we do like sex energetic stuff and like cool things around sexuality. So if you want to share a little bit.
Well, for sure. I mean, just the sex energetic stuff is basically, that is some of my favorite stuff, and that's a class we teach. I mean, because it's
so much fun.
It's so much fun. It's like learning how to have sex without it being point A inside of slot B, which is how most people think of it. So that's the energetics piece, and then I have some stuff just training men to be better lovers, better skill sets.
Hallelujah for that.
Yeah, well, I did that because I have so many amazing female friends who are like, please, because it's important. We upgrade everything. We upgrade our cell phones, our computers. We need to upgrade our sexual skills as well. And then also, I have a course for women that's about overcoming shame. So for women specifically, the shame of body, the shame of feeling that power and not knowing what to do with it, that's a very important piece. So that's my Tantra XO course, but that's training women to just really eliminate sexual shame. And when you eliminate that, now you have this whole palette of color ahead of you.
And ways to connect that take us back to sex energetics, right?
That's
because sometimes you want to play and not necessarily feel like we want to go like touchy-feely with the other person, and that's a great tool.
Yes.
To play around. That could be like also a good asset to having your skills to open your relationship.
That's right.
It's like no intercourse, but like, oh, I can play energetically.
Yes.
Right?
That's exactly right. And you can find out a lot about somebody by how they play with you energetically. And then, of course, for people who want to go deeper on the open relationship course,
That's brilliant. I love that one.
Yeah, that course is, I go into about 4 hours of training in terms of the psychology, the emotional thing. I answer tough questions in that course, and honestly, I think it's one of the best things out there. I was brought in, I didn't say this, but I was brought in by Neil Strauss for his new book, The Truth, and that's called An Uncomfortable Guide to Relationships, but he brought me in as the open relationship guru to kind of walk him through that. Well, all the things that I couldn't say in his book, I put in that course.
Open Relationship Blueprint, right?
Yes, that is right. And you can find that on my website, which is lawrencelanoff.com. So
awesome.
That's, and it's all there. And I will offer a little, we'll do a coffee, tea, sex coupon for anybody, right? So we'll give you a little discount for watching and listening and being crazy enough to even think about this path, because it's a beautiful path. I would never go back, nor would you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, once you know what you know, there's no going back.
There's no going back.
So.
Except coming back to coffee, tea, or sex, Lawrence.
Yes!
Yay, thank you so much for being here.
It is my pleasure.
Yay.
It has been great sharing sex with you.
Thank you, anytime. I'm open. Well, guys, this was Coffee, Tea, or Sex. Remember to have it every morning and every night. See you next time.